You ever have one of those moments where life hands you the most poetic, ironic, caramel-laced gift on a silver platter, and you don't know if you should unwrap it or burn it? Well, that was me last Tuesday, 9:47 a.m., sitting in my corner office overlooking the city I used to fantasize about escaping to back in high school, when HR forwarded me a resume for an open associate position. And there it was. Her name. Same spelling. Same hometown. My stomach flipped like I was 16 again, standing in the hall after gym class, soaking wet and shivering because she'd dumped my backpack and all my clothes into the girls' showers as a joke. Her name is Tessa Monroe. Let me rewind. I'm not gonna lie and say I had it rougher than anyone else in school, but I was one of those quiet, awkward kids that just never figured out how to be invisible enough. Social anxiety was my entire personality. I was tall too early, scrawny, pale, wore thick glasses, and had a stutter until I was 15. All of that made me a magnet for attention, the bad kind. And Tessa? She was the queen bee. Not in the mean girl cliché way. Worse. She was the kind who had teachers wrapped around her finger and could make you wish you were invisible with just one smirk. Her cruelty wasn't loud, it was calculated. Sharp. Always disguised as a joke, just plausible enough to avoid consequences. She called me Bird Bones for 3 years straight. Her friends would chirp whenever I walked into class. She once signed me up for a makeover raffle at a school fundraiser and paid $5 just to make sure the whole cafeteria heard about it. But the moment that really carved itself into my chest? Sophomore year. Speech class. We had to pair up and write dialogues. Everyone picked their friends, obviously. I got stuck with her. She laughed when she saw my name on the assignment sheet. Said, "God, why me? I already did my charity for the year." The project was 2 weeks of absolute hell. She barely helped, then trashed me during our presentation by pretending she'd written all of it because I get nervous and weird. I froze in front of the class. She got an A. I got a pity C and the nickname mute button. You don't forget things like that, even when you tell yourself you've moved on. I did move on, though. Or tried to. After graduation, I left town. Got a scholarship. Worked 2 jobs through college. Learned how to dress, how to speak up. Eventually started my own firm, software consulting. It's a grind, but a good one. I've built something I'm proud of. We're small but growing fast. Last year, we landed a Fortune 500 client. This year, we're hiring. Which brings me back to Tuesday. Tessa Monroe. Resume reads mature, team-oriented, excellent communicator. There's even a reference from a mutual former classmate, someone who probably doesn't know the history. At first, I just sat there, rereading her name like I was hallucinating. But then I checked the attached headshot. Same face, just older. Slicker. But I'd recognize those eyes anywhere. She doesn't recognize my name, clearly. Company is under a brand, not my personal name. So I did what anyone with a petty soul and a God complex would do. I scheduled an interview. And I was not prepared for how that would feel. She walked in 5 minutes early, confident as ever. Shook my hand. Looked me dead in the eye. No flicker of recognition. "Nice to meet you. I'm Tessa," she said with a grin that made my throat tighten. And I just smiled. "Pleasure. I'm James." She knew me as Jamie back then. The only people who still call me that are my mom and my therapist. We went through the motions. I asked the usual questions. She was fine. Polished. Said all the right things. But I could see it. She was trying to impress. She needed this job. And something deep, deep inside me whispered, "You could ruin her life right now. Say one word. Call her Bird Bones. Watch her panic." But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I told her we'd be in touch. She thanked me, turned to go, and just as she was reaching the door, she paused. Looked back. Tilted her head. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know this is weird, but have we met before?" I just smiled. "I don't think so." She left. I sat in silence for a long time. And then I called HR. "Schedule a second interview," I said, because I wasn't done yet. She got the job. Of course she did. I told HR she was a great fit for the role. Adaptable, charismatic, a good communicator. The irony wasn't lost on me. Those were all the things she used to weaponize in high school. Now they were assets on her CV, polished into professionalism. Like her whole past had been scrubbed clean. She started 2 Mondays ago. Her first day, I made a point of not showing up until after lunch. I knew that would throw her off. Most new hires expect the boss to do the welcome walk around, shake hands, give the speech. I didn't. I let our operations manager handle it, and when I finally walked in, I watched from behind the tinted glass of my office as she laughed with the team. She looked like she belonged. That bothered me more than I expected. There's this weird thing that happens when someone who hurt you is doing fine. You want to be better than them. You want to be over it. But there's a bitter taste that lingers. Because they don't remember. Not really. Second day, I called her into my office. I was standing when she walked in, coffee in hand, leaning casually against the window. She looked nervous. I like that. I just wanted to check in. See how you're settling, I said. Really good, actually, she replied. Everyone's been super welcoming. It's a really impressive place, honestly. You built this. I nodded. She gave me a look I couldn't quite read. That's really amazing. I always wanted to do something like this. Never had the guts. I almost laughed. No guts? You once convinced an entire pep rally to chant Jamie cries and Kim. But I kept my face neutral. Well, sometimes it's about timing. Luck. People giving you a chance. She smiled, but there was something uncertain in it. And that's when I realized she did recognize me. Not fully. Not clearly. But the edges were starting to sharpen. Something about my voice, maybe. Or my eyes. Trauma memory has a weird way of staying buried until something triggers it loose. A week went by. I gave her assignments. She was competent, quick on deadlines, asked good questions. She didn't suck up, but she did seem extra eager to impress me specifically. And I let her think she was doing great. Then I started the slow drip. Moved her desk closer to mine, so we can communicate better. Gave her vague feedback on presentations, just needs more polish. Reassigned one of her projects last minute to another associate, praising them in front of her. And then, at the team meeting on Friday, I pulled the first real trigger. We're implementing a mentorship initiative, I announced. Tessa's going to shadow Hannah for the next few weeks. Learn the ropes from one of our best. The air in the room shifted. Everyone knew what that meant. Hannah's the most junior person on the team. Sweet girl, but still asking questions like, how do I format a pivot table? Tessa's face didn't drop, but I saw the flicker behind her eyes. Afterward, she knocked on my office door. Hey, I just wanted to ask, am I doing something wrong? I looked up, feigning surprise. Not at all. Why would you think that? The mentorship thing. It feels a little off, to be honest. I smiled. Well, you said you were here to learn. We believe in humility here. Everyone starts somewhere. She opened her mouth to push back, then closed it. Nodded. Got it. That night, I stayed late. Alone in the office. Staring out the window, sipping bourbon I keep in the bottom drawer for nights just like that. And I asked myself the question that's been circling my mind since she walked back into my life. What am I trying to do here? I told myself this was about closure. About balance. About flipping the power dynamic for once in my life. But truthfully, I didn't feel better. Not yet. Just colder. She wasn't evil. She was just a teenager who found an easy target and enjoyed the power. Maybe she grew out of it. Maybe she didn't. But I didn't get that luxury. I carried the weight she gave me for years. Therapy. Insomnia. That gnawing fear that if people saw the real me, they'd laugh. Now she was walking around my office like we were equals. I couldn't let that go. So I decided to push it. This Monday, I walked past her desk and said casually, Tessa, do you have a minute? She followed me to my office, and I closed the door. Told her I wanted her to work on a pitch deck for a new client. High stakes, quick turnaround, and I needed her best work. I watched the pride flicker in her face again. I can do that, she said confidently. Oh, I added as she turned to leave. And make sure it's more impressive than that makeover raffle you pulled off in 10th grade. She froze. Her back to me. She turned slowly, eyes wide. Her mouth opened. Closed. I smiled. Yeah, I remember you. A full beat of silence. I didn't know. I mean, Jamie. I didn't answer. Her face went pale. She looked genuinely rattled. I didn't. I was a stupid kid. That stuff wasn't. I mean, I didn't think it stuck with you. It did, I said softly. She nodded. Eye shining. I'm so sorry. I waved it off. That's all. You're dismissed. She left without another word. And now, I'm sitting here again, bourbon in hand, wondering what the hell I just started. Because I think she's going to quit. And the worst part? A tiny voice inside me is hoping she doesn't. People always talk about karma like it's some cosmic lottery. Do bad things, get bad things. But I'm starting to think karma is more personal than that. It doesn't come from the universe. It comes from the person you hurt when they finally get the power to write the rules. And that person, right now, is me. It's been a week since I dropped the bomb. Since I looked Tessa Monroe in the eyes and let her know that her former favorite punching bag was now her boss. To her credit, she didn't quit. But everything changed. She still came in early. Still smiled when she greeted people. Still answered emails fast and dressed just right and volunteered for projects. But the mask was cracked now. Her confidence was quieter. Measured. Like she was scared of saying the wrong thing. And me? I started to feel off. Because the part of me that wanted revenge, it wasn't satisfied. And the part of me that wanted peace, it wasn't getting it either. Instead, I was living in this weird emotional purgatory, where every interaction was laced with an unspoken history and a toxic power imbalance that I couldn't stop twisting in my favor. The team noticed too. By Wednesday, I overheard Sarah, our HR lead, whispering in the break room. Do you think he's being a little hard on her? I don't know, said Daniel, our marketing guy. She seems like she can handle it. Still, Sarah said, lowering her voice, I've never seen him micromanage anyone else like that. It stung, hearing that. Because it was true. I was doing it. Micromanaging. Reassigning her work. Questioning her decisions in meetings just enough to undermine her. But never so much that it would trigger a formal complaint. Just enough that she'd feel the same frustration, the same helplessness I felt all those years ago. Last Friday, we had a team lunch. I made a point to sit at the table with the department heads and left an empty seat next to me, then waited until she awkwardly filled it. I talked around her the whole time, laughed loudly at other people's jokes, never once acknowledged her contributions to the conversation. Afterward, she asked to speak privately. She stood in my doorway, shoulders tight, eyes determined but vulnerable. I need to ask, she said. Are you doing this because of back then? I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. You mean high school? I said, feigning ignorance. That was a long time ago, Tessa. She didn't blink. But you remember it. I met her eyes. I remember everything. She looked down at her hands. I know I was awful to you. I won't pretend I wasn't. I've thought about it more than you probably realize. But this job, it matters to me. I'm trying to do it right. So if I'm not meeting your expectations, tell me. Don't punish me for who I used to be. That should have been it, right? The moment I forgave her. The moment I saw the growth and let it go. But all I could think about was sitting in a bathroom stall at 16, wiping Sharpie off my locker that said Jamie loves boys, wondering if transferring schools would solve anything. So I said nothing. Just stared at her until she nodded stiffly and left. That night, I lay awake for hours. The high was gone. All that was left was this gnawing guilt. Because here's the truth. I don't hate her anymore. Not really. But I also don't not hate her. What I hated was how easily she got to rewrite her story. To walk into my world like we were equals now. Like the years she spent grinding me under her heel were some deleted scene she didn't think anyone would remember. What do you do when the person who hurt you wants to change, but you're not done being angry? Monday morning, I walked into the office and something felt off. Tessa wasn't at her desk. Her laptop was there. Her coffee, still warm. But no sign of her. I asked around casually, pretending I wasn't looking for her. An intern finally said, Oh, I saw her go up to the rooftop deck. She looked kind of upset. I don't know what made me go up there. Curiosity? Guilt? Something deeper? I found her sitting on the bench, hugging her knees. Eyes red. She didn't hear me at first. I cleared my throat. She turned, startled. Wiped her face. Sorry, just needed some air. I stood there for a second, awkward. Then said, when I saw your resume. I almost deleted it. She laughed once, bitter. Should've. But I didn't, I continued. Because I wanted to see what kind of person you were now. And, she asked, voice low. You're trying. She looked up at me. I really am. A long silence stretched between us. The city buzzed below. I'm not proud of who I was, she said. I've done a lot of stupid, cruel things. And I never thought I'd get the chance to say sorry. But now that I have, I still feel like I'm stuck in some kind of punishment loop. I sat down on the opposite side of the bench. I don't know what I wanted, I admit it. Revenge, maybe. Or closure. But I think I was hoping that hurting you would fix something in me. Did it? I shook my head. Not really. She nodded slowly, eyes glassy. I guess we're both stuck then. We sat there like that, two ghosts from a shared past, unsure what to do with each other in the present. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't a redemption story. It wasn't even revenge. It was something messier. Something real. Because healing isn't always about forgiveness. Sometimes, it's about honesty. And sometimes, it's about deciding whether the person who broke you deserves to be part of the person you've become. I didn't think it would leak. What happened on the rooftop, that fragile conversation that felt like a détente after years of silent war, I thought that stayed between us. Tessa didn't strike me as the kind of person who would use something like that for sympathy points. And I sure as hell wasn't bragging. But within 3 days, people started acting weird. It was small stuff at first. Lingering glances when I walked through the bullpen. Conversations that suddenly halted when I entered a room. And then the one that confirmed it. Tessa went to high school with him, right? I overheard one of the sales guys whisper. Didn't she, bully him or something? Someone said she used to call him names. That was Wednesday. By Friday, the whispers had turned into silent tension. I noticed how people looked at me when Tessa was in the room. Like they were doing the math. Like they were wondering if every decision I'd made regarding her, every reassigned project, every pointed critique, was part of some slow-motion revenge fantasy. And to be honest, they weren't wrong. I tried to tell myself it was all coincidental, that I was just treating her like any other underperforming employee. But the truth? I'd been orchestrating a silent, petty takedown since the day she walked in. And now, people were starting to see it. Sarah from HR asked if we could touch base. I met her in her office, and she didn't waste time. I just want to get ahead of something before it becomes an actual issue, she said. There's some perception among staff that your relationship with Tessa might be clouded by personal history. I kept my face neutral. What kind of personal history? You went to high school together, right? I've heard. Murmurs. Murmurs. Always the damn murmurs. I never dated her, if that's what you're implying, I said coolly. That's not what I'm implying. Sarah leaned in slightly. But whatever did happen between you two, if it's impacting your dynamic now, it might be time to reevaluate your role in managing her directly. I didn't respond right away. My pulse was hammering. She continued, there's nothing concrete, but perception matters. If people think she's being targeted, even subtly, it reflects on the culture. On you. I nodded once, then left before I could say something I'd regret. That night, I stayed at the office late again, staring at the glass reflections in the windows like I'd been doing a lot lately. I thought about everything I'd done to her since she joined. The subtle undercuts, the loaded silences, the way I'd relished watching her squirm. And I couldn't tell if I hated her for who she was or hated myself for what I'd become trying to level the score. I thought about deleting her file, just firing her and ending the whole charade. But that would be too obvious now, too messy. And in some twisted way, I didn't want her gone. I wanted her to understand. But instead, she surprised me again. Monday morning, she came into my office and closed the door behind her. Her chin was lifted, her hands steady. I know people are talking, she said. I know they think you're coming after me. I didn't say anything. I didn't tell them everything, she added. Just that we had history. That I wasn't kind to you. And that you were being professional. I blinked. You told them I was professional? She shrugged. You didn't have to hire me. But you did. And I've been trying to be better. If they want to see drama, that's on them. I sat back in my chair, studying her. There was no edge in her voice. No performance. Just honesty. I've thought about quitting, she admitted. But I think that would make it too easy. For both of us. I tilted my head. What do you mean? I mean, maybe this is the one place where we can both look at who we used to be and choose who we want to be now. The room went quiet. She left without waiting for a response. I didn't sleep that night. Because the thing no one tells you about revenge is that it doesn't make you feel powerful. It makes you feel stuck. Like you're still in the moment they hurt you, just looping the scene with different costumes. And the worst part? Sometimes the person you hate stops being a villain. And you realize you don't know who the hell you're supposed to be anymore. That Friday, the firm hosted a quarterly team mixer at a rooftop bar. It was loud, bright, warm with string lights and clinking glasses. Everyone was buzzed, laughing, letting loose. Tessa came late, wearing a simple black dress and a tired smile. She looked normal, not like the girl from high school, not like the pawn in my revenge plan, just a woman trying to live her life. We exchanged nods across the crowd, nothing more. But later, when people began to leave, we ended up alone near the railing. City lights stretching behind us like a frozen fireworks show. She broke the silence. I think you were right to hate me. I turned to her. But you weren't right to become someone else because of it, she added. You're better than that. That landed deeper than I expected. I stared at her for a long moment. Then I said, I don't know if I am. Her eyes softened. Then maybe we're both still learning. We stood there for a minute, two shadows sharing the weight of 1,000 unspoken things. And for the first time since she showed up, I felt something shift, not forgiveness, not closure, but maybe the beginning of it. There's a line I read once, can't remember where, probably one of those therapist-approved Instagram posts that get screenshotted a million times. It said, "Revenge keeps you tied to the past. Forgiveness frees you. But neither one owes you closure." I didn't get it then. I do now. Because here I was, weeks into this twisted full-circle story, holding all the cards. I had the title, the corner office, the authority. She had no idea what version of me she'd report to each day. And still, I didn't feel like I'd won anything. But she changed everything again. It was a Tuesday. The office was quiet, most of the team working from home. Tessa knocked, then stepped in with a folder. She looked calm, not submissive, not trying to impress, just composed. "I'd like to put in a formal request," she said, "to transfer teams." That caught me off guard. She laid the folder on my desk. "It's not about escaping anything. I just think it would be healthier for both of us. You and I have too much history for a professional dynamic to feel balanced." I opened the folder. She'd already drafted the paperwork, outlined her rationale clearly, even suggested which department she could transition to without disrupting timelines. It was annoyingly responsible, and it pissed me off. Because in that moment, I realized what she was doing. She was taking control of the narrative. She was taking the high road, and I didn't want her to beat me to it. "I'm not trying to run," she said, reading my silence. "I'm trying to move forward. Whether you believe that or not is up to you." I didn't sign the transfer right away. I told her I'd think about it. What I actually did was spiral. That night I went home and stared at my bedroom ceiling like it had answers carved into the drywall. Every memory of her came flooding back. Not just the obvious cruelties, but the moments in between. The day she caught me practicing my speech behind the gym and whispered "good luck" as she passed. The time I dropped my books in the hallway and she crouched to help me, then ruined it with a joke. The way she almost seemed human, sometimes, and then wasn't. People like her weren't supposed to feel guilt. Weren't supposed to circle back into your life and try. It made things complicated. I hated complicated. So the next day, I made a decision. A final one. I walked into HR with the folder and signed off on her transfer. And I added a handwritten note at the bottom. Effective immediately. All internal communication regarding Tessa's reassignment should route through Sarah. No further input required from me. I didn't want to be part of the story anymore. I handed it to Sarah, nodded, and walked out. For the next week, I avoided her entirely. No eye contact, no emails, just clean silence. I figured that was the end of it. And it almost was. Until I got the email. Subject line, closure. From Tessa Monroe. To me. Time, Friday, 7:12 p.m. Hey Jamie. Yeah, I figured you still hate that name. Sorry. I know we're done talking, probably forever. But I needed to say one last thing, and since I doubt you'll ever give me the time in person, I'm saying it here. You had every right to hate me. I did horrible things back then. Things I thought were harmless because I didn't understand how deep words could cut. Because I was a scared teenager pretending to be confident. And you? You were just an easy target. And I'm sorry for that. Deeply, genuinely sorry. When I took this job, I didn't recognize your name. But when I figured it out, part of me thought I deserved whatever was coming. And maybe I did. But you didn't humiliate me. You didn't scream. You didn't stoop. You just stared me down with all the weight of what I'd done. That's worse. And fairer. I won't pretend I've changed into some saint. But I'm trying. And you were a mirror I didn't expect to face. So, thank you for hiring me. Thank you for not firing me. And thank you for letting me leave with a little dignity. I hope one day, this whole mess doesn't live so loud in your head anymore. Tessa. I read it 3 times. Then I deleted it. Not because it didn't matter, but because it did. And sometimes, holding on to things, especially apologies, is just another way of keeping yourself locked in place. So here's the truth, and I'm putting it out there like a final confession. She broke me. I tried to break her back. Neither of us won. But maybe we both walked away a little more whole. Update. 2 months later. Tessa's doing well on her new team. I see her around sometimes, in meetings, passing in the halls. We don't talk, but we don't flinch either. She got nominated last week for a Cross-Departmental Innovation Award. I voted for her anonymously. It felt weird. Not because she didn't earn it, but because a part of me still wanted her to know I supported her. And another part still didn't. Moral of the story? Sometimes, you don't get the revenge you imagined. Sometimes, you don't get the closure you crave. Sometimes, all you get is the mirror. And if you're lucky, you face it.